Hello, welcome to another episode of StarrCast. I'm Lisa Starr with Wynne Business, and we are here today with a very esteemed spa consultant from Mexico, Diana Mestre. Diana is the founder of Mestre Mestre Spa Consulting, which is a business she has with her daughter, also named Diana. But Diana is highly regarded in the world, especially Latin America and the Caribbean, for her innovative spa facility designs and programming. And we're so excited to have her with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here with you and to be able to share and to talk with your audience. So thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
being
it's
here.
my pleasure. I've had the lovely aspect of getting to know Diana from consulting. In fact, Diana, it was you and I on a plane leaving Morocco that dreamed up the consulting task force, as I recall, however many 6 years ago that might have been. So, Diana and I both serve on the consulting task force for the Global Wellness Institute, and I've gotten to know her much better that way, which has been delightful. But when you're working together, you don't always hear sort of the backstory, and I've done a little bit of investigation, but I thought Diana could fill us in her own words about her journey to her position now, and how she came to be there. Diana, I'll let you pick up the story from growing up in Mexico, and I know you moved to the States as a teenager.
That's right. Well, my story actually starts with my grandfather. My grandfather came from Spain to Mexico, and he was at that time called naturalist. So he was
Mm.
like like a fitness coach, a fitness instructor, and I was very thin, fragile, and always ill. So I moved with him. My mother, it sent me with him, and I was with him for 2, 3 years. So he, every morning we would do gymnastics. I would, he has his own botanical garden, so he would cut the like it's called alfalfa. I don't know what
Hmm.
is it called in the States, and I would have my green juice ever since I was like about 8 years old or
Wow.
7 years old. So, and, my whole view of in natural medicine, when there would be, like hail, we would put the ice in the body, and he would make me. In all of what we do today, I started with my grandfather.
It's
So,
wonderful when it's
yes,
indigenous like that. It's just a
yes,
built-in
yeah.
practice.
So it was inside of my existence and the way I was looking at life. So when my father was asked to move to the States in engineering, I started in high school, and I started with tennis and sports. And then when I did my junior college in Mount San Antonio College, and we had an amazing program with Dr. Cooper at that time. We were a
Oh.
community pilot program for all of the, fitness testing. That's when the word aerobics was coined.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was part of an amazing team. And we even would go to LA to do the high performance testing with RAMs at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I moved to, I mean, when the time came to go to the university, California State University, it was easy for me to choose my career. So I went into pre-med biology, and then I did my master's in physiology of exercise and nutrition. And I was teaching classes at that time. And at that time, I also opened my own business, which was called Bien-être, which in French means wellness. And I taught so many classes, and it was that time where fitness was very, very strong at that time. Then, my present husband came to visit me in the United States. And when I was 8 years old, I told him I would marry him.
You did?
Yes. So he came, we connected. I got married. I moved back to Mexico, and then I started in, opening the first spa in beachfront area in Mexico,
Hmm. Where
because
was that? What town was it in?
in
Uh-huh.
Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And from there, I was given the opportunity. I was actually recruited by Dr. Singer and Patty Moneson from Health and
Mm-hmm.
Fitness Dynamic as the spa director for Paradise Village.
So wait, why were
Um,
you recruited as a spa director? You hadn't really worked in a spa yet, had you?
Yes, I worked 7 years at a Fiesta Americana Condesa. That was the first spa resort
Okay.
here in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
I did that for 7 years. And then Patty and Judy came to visit the spa and says, would you like to be the spa director for Paradise Village?
And you said, of
And
course.
God, they were my mentors. A lot of, I would say, my foundation, my background, everything that I learned on the uh, finances and everything was from there. Actually, I presented them to it was the Health of Ministry of Tourism,
Mm-hmm.
and they were the first ones to teach Mexico how to do everything. So they
Mm-hmm.
gave amazing conferences, and so that's when my career started. In those 7 years, then Mr. Chapur came in, which is the owner of Palace Resorts, and said, I want to build a spa, and they tell me that you're very good. Would you like to participate? And that ended up being what today is the Aventura Hard Rock a Hotel and Spa, which was the largest. It was crazy at that time because there were 100 treatment rooms.
100?
100, and it was because he is an all-inclusive company, so they wanted to do an all-inclusive spa.
Mm.
So we had to kind of calculate how
How
many
many
people would
hotel
be,
rooms were there?
like 3,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
So they
it's like
just assumed everybody would be coming to the spa and we better build a
yes,
big one.
a big one. So, and we did everything with fitness, a yoga temple. We did, all of the, well, based on everything that I learned from Patty and Judy. And from there, my consulting career took off, and I started, they asked me to do different projects, different spas, different. So it's been kind of like 30 years of imagination, and of gratefulness, because every project that I take is like unique. You try to find. I focus a lot on creating experiences, and what we always say, in the spa, the last thing you sell is a massage and a facial. You are selling a transformational experience. You are trying to see, the flow. So that's, how I came up with my seven senses for design of spas. And that's what I always focus on, like the identity, which is the first one. What is the identity of this place? Where is it located at? What, how is it different from anybody else? And so I treat them like unique beings, and then the sense of place. Of course, you are in
Mm-hmm.
Mexico, or you're in the Caribbean, or you are in Panama. What does culture says for that place?
Mm-hmm.
Then the third sense that I use a lot is the sense of flow. Does it flow? Is there an interruption? Is there something in the design that stops experience? Or a situation that's going to create a fracture,
Mm-hmm.
noises, or something is just not going to flow? Then the sense of awe, it's like, how many times can you make me go like,
Oh.
God, this is amazing. So that's when we design all the protocols, the happenings, the details that really, make the difference in terms of the service. And then the sense of departure, which is one that most people
Mm.
forget,
But
because
very important. I mean, it's the last thing people experience.
exactly, so we have like a memory gift, a detail that your therapist, makes, they made with their hands. So you can take something, with you, and then that, you can do that whole other thing in terms of selling another treatment or recommending retail, all of that, because you have given a sense of gratefulness, a little detail that makes the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the sense of connection, how do you really connect with people from the heart, that connection, heart brain, just really being as authentic as possible. And that's what makes every place different. Otherwise you have like cookie cutters of spas, and that's what, those seven senses is what has really made a difference in every project that I do.
Diana, that's so interesting about the seven pillars. So just remind us what they are again from the start.
The seven pillars are the basis that I use always to design or to create the experiences for a spa. So the first sense that I use is the ID, the DNA of the place, the sense of identity.
Mm-hmm.
What is this place? What does it tell me? What is the essence, the energy of the place? We search for how is this space different, or how is it going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
The second pillar is the sense of a place. Where is it located? What
Mm-hmm.
does culturally? How can you enhance the experience through cultural elements?
You mean where it is, like in what country or region of Mexico?
Exactly. So
Okay.
if you are in the Caribbean, it will have a different flavor. If you're in Mexico, or you're in Panama, or if you're in Spain, wherever
Mm-hmm.
you are, there must be a local fruit, there must be a local tradition. So that's, part of what we search and the inspiration for the spa menu.
Mm-hmm.
And the third pillar is a sense of flow. How
Mm.
does the design flow? How to prevent any type of fracture in the experience? So if it's not well designed, or if you have something that interrupts that sense, it's, it's got to be like a river. It's got to be something that
Mm.
takes you from beginning to end without any type of interruptions. And you even have to be aware of what's outside, because if there's noises, construction, or something, that will also interrupt
Certainly.
that sense of immersion into the experience. This the fourth pillar is the sense of awe. So the sense of awe is it at every place. What can you create that makes you have that sense of admiration. So from the beginning, when you come in, you have like a welcome shot, a drink that is
Mm.
based on the cultural elements of the fruits of the place. So you're creating memories,
And
uh,
right from when they enter, like right from the
exactly.
beginning.
Right from the beginning, you have an auditory memory, you have a taste memory, you have an olfactory memory. So what memories are you creating in each area of the spa?
Mm.
The fifth pillar is the sense of departure,
Mm-hmm.
and the sense of departure is that element which really is of gratefulness. So the therapist always create like a little bracelet or
Mm.
a little the artisan element, local element, which is also part of the sense of place, and it's a gift to their guests that have come. So it's a sense of appreciation, and from there you can move into recommending other services, the product. But you have that element of, I'm very grateful that you have come to the spa, and this is something. And we even have kind of like beautiful stories,
Mm-hmm.
from guests that really become very emotional by receiving this
Well, I love your focus on that because departure is the last thing, and it's the thing we tend to rush through, and it's more transactional. So I love how you're making an experience that's positive for the guests because that's the last thing they'll remember.
yeah. And then the sense of connection is like you connect with them from the heart, from authenticity, but you also remember them. So what are you going to do to be thankful, to be grateful, to let them know that even
Mm-hmm.
though they have gone from your spa, maybe they received something in their room, some kind of
Mm-hmm.
card thanking them, or you connect with them if they left their email, like, we're so grateful you were here. You try to connect with people in a much deeper sense,
Mm-hmm.
so all of those senses, really kind of helps you um, to design any place, under the focus of those seven senses will allow you to create something different every time.
Mm-hmm. So, what are you seeing now in terms of design? I don't mean COVID related. Just before that, what were the trends in spa design that you were seeing?
um, Absolutely more, more connection, in this connection with nature, really getting nature inside the spa, being able to the the forces, the natural forces, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of in the visuals, the sound. For me, sound is also very important. Vibration, providing experiences that are um, not so commercial, but a
Mm-hmm.
little more personal lives really being transformative, which
Mhm.
means that in a sense you leave the spa, with a sense of becoming a better person, taking better care of your health, yourself, leaving things better than you found them,
Mm.
and all of these elements that really become part of your lifestyle, changing people's lives. I would say that's what I've always said that spas are the sanctuaries of the soul.
Mm.
Always is that one place that you can go to really make a reset, a change, an improvement. Which, we just finished in Spanish a book, my daughter and I, which are called Wellness Codes, and we're working on the English version.
I
But
saw that. I saw that on your LinkedIn. I was fascinated.
and it's a different approach, and like our 8 elements of wellness that we always have at they're expressed, the mental wellness and spiritual wellness and physical, all the 8 dimensions of wellness. But we chose to see them from the 5 elements, like
Mhm.
from the element air. What is it that gives you wellness? Is the breath work?
Mm.
Is everything that you smell? What are you smelling? Are you using essential oils? What
Mm.
are you using in terms of sound? How you making sound make your life better? If it's water, are you hydrating your body? Are you connecting with the water?
Mm.
Are you feeding? Because are you moving? Because water is movement. And if it's fire, it's digestion. How you
Mhm.
would. So we kind of chose to see all of the. We came up with 21 codes.
Wow.
That you could choose and become interested within these 5 elements. Each element has maybe 5, 6 different codes that you can adopt in your life and make your life better. So this is what I see in the spas, is how you can transform people's life. How can you teach them, help them, create those, workshops that tells them what are superfoods, or how to, make your own exfoliant, or how to love yourself more. So that's what I think we're going in a
Well, I,
much
I
more
can't
deeper.
wait to read the book. And I wonder, how was it to write a book with your daughter? Was it a challenging exercise or was it easy?
You know, um, I I think it was like a download. It's like a universal thing. Like we
Hmm.
were in this downtime, and we were talking about how can we communicate to therapists, to people that don't. It's a very light book. Okay, it's not a profound book. Probably for consultants and for experts, it's just too light. But for people that don't know anything about
No,
wellness,
it's
that are
sure. I'm
not
sure it will
into
be
it,
useful.
it gives them kind of like a dimension of just connecting more to what makes them feel better, become
Hmm.
healthier. And I think that's the central point for a spa is transforming people's lives. That's
Well, it seems really smart for you to have. I mean, first of all, consumers say, "What is wellness anyway? I don't really understand." So, framing it under the senses, people can relate to that. It sounds like, using elements that we are familiar with is probably a great way for consumers to better connect with the concepts.
And from there, they can explore more and they can visit their favorite spa if they've never tried a spa. Maybe this is the time they're going to allow themselves to, give themselves that time where as we become as an industry more conscious of the deeper layers and the deeper concepts that hold wellness, that is not just a commercial or operational transaction.
Hmm.
Is more of a profound, consciousness shift. That's where I think the evolution of wellness is unstoppable. It really is unstoppable. I
Well,
really see this growing a lot more.
you have a great talent, Diana, because people think, oh, designing spas. Okay, you pick the curtains, you pick the furniture, you make it look pretty. And that's part of it. But of course, there's so much to the back of house, the ergonomic flow, and the things you wouldn't know unless you had been a spa director, which you were. So, how did being a spa director help you become a better designer?
Absolutely. I think it's very difficult to design a spa if you have not lived every aspect of different spas and companies, from each, from the first spa resort that I opened to Paradise Village. I also worked as a spa director at La Costa Resort and Spa,
Mm,
which was quite challenging because of
mhm,
many, concepts that were not updated. To every aspect of the many different spas we've created, that you know the support of the back of the house is essential. The wellness, or we work well like you have,
mhm,
in all your courses is fundamental. If you don't, regard your therapist and your staff as one of the most important elements to give and in to communicate that wellness, then it's going to be somehow void or empty, or
mhm,
it's not going to make the change that we want to create in our industry. So
mhm,
yeah, being like a spa director gives you the foundation, to really create unique places that like in my mind, sometimes we go at night and, oh no, we're going to have problem here. I kind of like, I see a design and then I think it's perfect, and then we go back into it again and we see a situation that
mm,
could be improved. So yeah, it's a challenge. And I have to say that I'm very lucky because I do work with very talented people: architects, designers, interior designers, engineers,
mhm,
hydrotherapy experts,
mhm,
and that enhances. I'm the sum of a lot of people
mhm,
experiences.
mhm.
I could never say I am the knows everything.
Yes.
No, I am the sum of many talented, eh, artists and therapists that design treatments that are quite amazing. And so I keep collecting rituals. I collect rituals. I collect ideas
Mhm.
from all these talented people.
I think that's
Um,
the role of the consultant, right? It's to
yes,
sift through all of the different ideas and inspirations, and then also the practices of, as you said, the architects, the engineers, the hard science behind it, and to meld them all into one business that makes sense, that operates smoothly, and attracts the guest to come back. No, nothing to it. Very small effort in that. Not quite,
not, we always say that if anything goes wrong, it's the consultant's fault.
for sure.
Everything goes right, is the architect's art. So that's the way it is. Being a consultant is a silent place to be. It is, because basically you're advising, you're telling, you're guiding, but that's not apparent many times
Mhm.
in many projects. So it could be uh, you know a, a silent road basically, but I love, this
Mhm.
opportunity that life has, kind of given me and expanding, because as you know now, we're kind of breaking that membrane from the spa and
Mhm.
allowing these wellness elements to, be really spread out through a resort, in this concept of that Adrian Lake came up with, wellness without walls.
Mhm.
We have kind of developed, I have created more spaces and more places thanks to her inspiration.
Mhm.
And so, we, designed silent spaces and meditative spaces and wellness corners, and on all the wellnessing programs that, that really allows guests to have, an encounter. It's a wellness encounter. It doesn't mean that you have to force anything on anybody that doesn't want, but it allows guests to become in touch with wellness elements if they don't ever step into the spa, and that's what can take them back into that sensory space, which is the spa.
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head with that trend, which was has been happening for the last few years of, the spa used to be this place at the end of the hall where you went, to have a treatment, and some people came to the resort and they never went to the spa, and they but wellness has to be more than just the hour they come and have a treatment. And now we have seen that trend to, as you said, the walls coming down and wellness being infused throughout the resort. And you, in fact, work with some resorts that focus on wellness throughout the resort and do an excellent job of that. Like I know they have a wellness week, right? Is it Las Vegas at Velas that does Grand
Yes.
Velas?
Yes, the Cambelas, we first created the wellness suites, which and they're really gives you that dimension of wellness within your room. And then we start creating the wellness without walls elements, and the
Mm-hmm.
Wellness Wednesday, to connect guests into a one day that the whole resort celebrates wellness.
Mm.
So that day, like there will be some special thing in your room, and then it will be a wellness corner in the restaurants, and there will be special activities, like an earth walk or anything like that. And then we did once a year, we do the wellness and getaway, which is for 4 or 5 days, where we bring experts from different parts of the world that give different presentations, shamans and vegan experts and
Mm.
yoga masters. And so it's an amazing week,
I
it's,
want to come for that. That sounds amazing.
yeah, well, let's hope that we can,
Exactly.
recuperate those weeks, because, well, the whole, industry is being kind of like, especially in Mexico, being, like, now it's coming back, but it's,
Hmm.
it's been a very quiet year.
Well, for consultants in particular that work on big hotel projects, as you do, um, how was the last year for you? You have many projects in the pipeline. Did they continue? Did they pause? I mean, what are you seeing from the development side?
Well, actually, I was, I've been very lucky again. A lot of the projects have slowed down, but, in terms of architecture and floor planning, um, we've had the whole entire year, meetings. In terms of the when they're going to do the construction is being delayed, but they
Hmm.
have taken advantage in terms of design and just working the different elements of the floor plans. And with the Palace Resorts, I've continued, and with the Hard Rock Resorts, I've continued going every month, just to do the training for how they're going to take care of the guests, how they're going to take care of themselves,
Hmm.
you know, and and this has been my fight, Lisa, in terms of the COVID, is turning COVID protocols into rituals, um, but being
Mm.
congruent,
Hmm.
because when this whole thing started, it's like you couldn't do nothing. They took everything away, and it was like, why are you taking this away? If they do this, and it's authorized in food and beverage, why cannot we? Why can't
Hmm.
we not offer anything anymore? Why can we're not even able to give a cup of tea? It's
Mm.
just, so we're just really deploying everything. So guests are receiving less than they were when everything was going. So I try to kind of be congruent to, if this is possible and this is approved, we need to find a way to do it at the spa. We
Hmm.
cannot afford to lose all our rituals, all our special details. Whether does it take to place everything? For instance, in the saunas, they took away the
The eye
cucumber,
mask. Oh, the cucumbers.
but now we put the cucumbers in little cellophane envelopes. We give
Hmm.
them with, gloves, and we give them with this, so you can put them.
Hmm.
It's just like just finding how many ways can we, recuperate all these little happenings and amenities that, we were offering before this situation, because it's very easy to take everything away,
Well,
and
that was the first reaction of business, right? We didn't know. We didn't know how the virus was transmitted
yeah,
exactly. And I think everyone's immediate reaction was, oh, just stop doing everything. But,
exactly.
now that it's gone on and on and on, we've realized, to your point, that we need to figure out how to do it, just do
Yeah.
it differently.
Like the gel, we put now aromatherapy, so how many times you offer, the gel for your hands,
Hmm.
the sanitizing gel. So, and that was in, when I went to a chocolate store in Punta Cana. I entered the store and they had this, sanitizing gel. I put it on and it smells like chocolate,
I
and I
love
go,
it.
God, what a wonderful idea. So let's do that at the spa, and
Right.
after that, let's offer a hand cream, because your hands become like really like so brittle after a while from
After
using
so much
some
sanitizing.
sanitizing. So how about, a wonderful hand cream that you can sell? So
Mhm.
just adding these elements that that are safe, that that makes a difference, that gives that sense of, again, with the seven pillars, how you're
Mhm.
going to surprise me now, how you're
Mhm.
going to surprise me, how you're going to make the difference.
Well, those are great tips. I'm interested in building on that, Diana, and how you see design changing, or do you post COVID? Do you think that the spa and wellness spaces will be different, or is this just a temporary situation?
I think the change is going to be pretty permanent because this I don't know if it's going to be the first or the last, or it's going to keep going into different versions of this pandemic. So um, eh, we need to probably they're going to be more relaxed in terms of distancing and spaces, but I
Mhm.
think that we're going to have that safety element has to be built into the new designs. More open spaces, more
Mhm.
outdoor spaces, more biophilic spaces, more personalized spaces. For instance, in the hydrotherapy ritual, everybody would come before the treatment. Now it's by appointment, and
Mhm.
it's going to be more the amount of volume this passion is going to be affected for a long
Mhm.
time, I think.
Mhm.
So there will be more in terms of all the technology is going to be playing a very important part in terms of apps and QR codes, and
Mhm.
having the menus and doing your checking, certain check-ins or certain reservations that you can do online.
Mhm.
Though I always think that the human touch and the human smile and the human connection can never be substituted by technology.
No, and we're fortunate.
Technology will grow.
We can't buy that on Amazon, so we're lucky for that. So in closing, Diana, do you think that this pandemic has created an opportunity for our industry in any way?
Yes, I think for the industry and for people, for everything is kind of gives is there is a silver lining in all of this, because it has to make you think, reflect what's really worth in life. It's like um, you just go into an automatic mode when everything is fine and you don't value many things. So I think we have learned to value life,
Mm,
value wellness, value health, value each other. When I'm able to give a hug,
yes.
to it's just like you appreciate the energy of other people, of your staff, of everything that surrounds you. I think we have learned to value life in all of its different dimensions.
Hmm.
So we'll learn from this and we'll overcome it, I'm sure. We'll become stronger
Yes.
and more resilient, and more focused into what really is worth in life.
Well, we've certainly gained the attention of our consumers who understand a little bit more about how visiting the spa can really help them on their journey to personal wellness.
Yes.
And thank you, Diana, for sharing your journey. I mean, to think of you going from summa cum laude in biology at Cal Polytechnic, and here you are designing spas all over Latin America. Amazing journey. And thank you so much for sharing with us.
Lisa, it's such a pleasure, and you're such a brilliant, amazing voice in our industry. So I really thank you from my heart, for this moment with your audience, and for sharing our thoughts in this world.
Thank you so much, Diana. Much
Thank you,
appreciated.
Lisa. Thank you.